Jacqueline Novak is a Brooklyn-based comedian whom you may or may not have seen on major programs like CBS's Late Show and BRIC TV's Stand Up Brooklyn, hosted by, well, that hardly matters. She's also now an author with her first book out this month. It's called How to Weep in Public, Feeble Offerings on Depression from Someone Who Knows, and it does nothing to dispel the myth that all comedians are secretly tragic figures. We're delighted to welcome the magnificent Jacqueline Novak to BK Live. Jacqueline!
Hey guys.
How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, the book is hilarious.
Thank
it's
you.
spectacular. It's laugh out loud, funny. What was it that inspired you to write about depression and mental health?
Well, I was depressed, and and it was funny. But what basically happened was it was really coloring everything I was writing as is, and trying to kind of write as though I was living this one, kind of life, while the depression is really creeping in. Yeah, exactly. So I thought, all right, it's creeping into everything. I might as well just lean into it and openly write from that perspective. And I was kind of thinking like, all right, well, that might be the one useful thing. If I'm going to be creative during this time at all, then maybe it would be kind of interesting to write from that, and maybe that would be comforting to someone.
Yeah, it's kind of like self-help a little bit, right?
Well, I personally love self-help, but my way of I love self-help, but my way of kind of trying to approach the, depressed reader, if they are depressed, is to promise them that I'm not going to offer any help, because that, I think, can be stressful. It's sort of like sometimes you just want to, sometimes you're just not up for trying to get better, and there are those moments, and so I'm trying to kind of sneak in. It's almost like, when a friend wants to cheer you up, but you're like, I cannot, I will not be cheered up, I'm not letting you in the house. It's kind of like, this book is my way of going, don't worry, it's not self-help. It's, I'm not going to offer you any useful exercises.
Well, it's a hysterical book.
I'm so glad you think so.
Of course.
How does it work its way into your comedy with people reacting? Do you feel like people respond more to when you're sharing the stuff about that's maybe colored by the depression, or is it like the silence, like, am I supposed to laugh at this?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Well, I usually don't do much about depression in my act, in my stand-up act.
Okay.
I've done a little bit, but it's hard. It's not. It's a little bit like that. Yeah. I think there's something about on the page, the kind of privacy of reading, that kind of one-to-one conversation in a book versus like stand-up where people can be a little bit uncomfortable with it, or it's so I haven't quite figured that out. Right now, it is kind of this separate. But I think maybe based on reactions to the book, maybe I'll get a sense of what I can float. Yeah. What I can float their way in the.
The book is amazing. There's a launch party going on for it on March 17th. We also want to talk about your comedy, like we just were. Look, there you are. You're on CBS on the Late Show. What goes into all that? How long have you been doing comedy? What goes into getting a shot like that on TV?
Oh my God.
Being a comedian.
Well, it's different for everyone, right? Some people are snatched up on day one, thrust in front of the camera. Others of us, kind of toil away behind the scenes and claw for relevance until, we get a foothold in any opportunity. It was very interesting doing that show. It's a short set on a, network. And
major. They're all short sets. You get like your 2 minutes to shine in front of the world.
Yeah, and so it's sort of doing that versus kind of, a Brooklyn show where I might be exploring around on stage and really taking my time and finding my way and feeling things out. That kind of, is very much the opposite. Very tight, very, so it was a really interesting experience to kind of go and do comedy in that way after, doing a lot of more flying free, change it up at any moment kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Comedy now is, maybe it's the girls' club. They're taking over seemingly. We're paying a lot more attention to women comics right now. Has that sort of primed the pump for women, and do you think more ladies are entering the comedy field because of those women who are so out front now?
I think, I definitely think so. I mean,
wish they would go away. Like,
More women, you mean?
Too crowded, like the field
No,
is really big.
I hear what you're saying. I think it's ultimately good for everyone, because it's kind of like just expands the market. It's not like, oh, I want to be the only woman in comedy. It's like more people have experienced women comedians and enjoyed them, then that's ultimately better for me. Then they're more open to me, I guess. But yeah, I think I think it's definitely just expanding, and every, it just builds on itself. The more examples there are of women doing it.
So just one more question in that vein, because when I see some of the interviews of women who are successful comics and they talk about people saying women aren't funny or something, and I'm like, who says that? I've never had that experience. Is it like a generational thing? Like, I grew up watching Roseanne and even Brett Butler and like all these funny people. Whoopi Goldberg.
Grace Under Fire.
Yeah, get that reference. But like from Whoopi on, it's like I've never in my mind. Who says women aren't funny? Is that something that you grew up hearing or were influenced by?
I think once you're entering the scene, it's like when you're a kid or, and you're watching these television shows and you're, but then I think when you're particularly the stand-up scene where there are way less, female headliners and stuff like that. Yeah. So particularly in that kind of setting, there's an expectation that's when people go like, people will say things like, I really liked you and I hate female comedians, They really do say it in those contexts. So it's interesting, It's kind of fun though. It's kind of fun to be sort of underestimated or something. There's a kind of joy and
never saw you coming.
Yeah. So I take some pleasure in that.
Well, How to Weep in Public, the book is hysterical. Early practice in crying while making eye contact with strangers. All of the chapters have hysterical titles. What are some of your favorite passages from this book?
I just fully start perfectly. I memorized the entire book. I like some of the early stories from my childhood. They're not, I'm not claiming I was depressed then or anything. They're just kind of stories of being a sensitive child or whatever and how that may have foreshadowed some later experiences. So those are kind of fun. I always like those. And, I guess I like some of the tips that are...
Please share a tip with us.
Yeah, like I do like, for example, the Weep in Public is based on some weeping in public tips that I give. And one of them is aiming for perpendicularity with letting the tears fall out. So if that's your face, you got to lean straight over. Kind of flat back. Yeah. And you maybe pretend to be coughing or vomiting, something like that. Aim for, perpendicularity so that your face is flat and the tears fall. Okay? Then they don't go over the eyelids. Then they don't.
And that's a scene.
No tracks of the tears. No rubbing. Okay? You just let them fall out cleanly. That's a big one.
That's good to know. I may try that later today.
Later
in the show, maybe even. Jacqueline, so good. I have so much more I want to talk to you about. What is the book launch event in our last minute here?
Absolutely. So March 17th, Thursday at 8 p.m. at Villain. It's in Williamsburg. And it's going to be a Depresso Carnival, an interactive comedy experience / art exhibit. I think I'm going to have, those guys?
Oh, yeah, like used car dealership guys?
Yes, but he's going to be crouched in depression.
Oh, nice.
So there's going to be things like that, and I think it's going to be really strange and interesting. I really want people to come out.
Well,
March 17th.
From today,
yes.
Mark your calendars.
Yeah.
Get down to Villain in Williamsburg.
And everyone knows where to find the book online. What's your website? You want to give that out, please?
Sure. Jokesnovak.com, Novak,
There you go.
Thank you,
Jacqueline. Thanks for having me.
No, it's our pleasure.
Yeah.
How to Weep in Public is the book. It's hysterical, laugh out loud. We all know depressed people and non-depressed people that would love this book and love Jacqueline Novak. Jacqueline, thank you.
Thank you.